another episode of the Healing Space podcast. Today we are joined by the infamous Dr. Cara Barr, who honestly is like a warm glass of, I don't know.
Sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah. And I'm very sleepy because her presence is here. So we're just gonna all vibe and talk about how what Dr. Barr does can help HS patients from her perspective. So Dr. Barr, thank you for being here and take it away.
Thank you. I am going to not interpret what you just said, that I'm a snooze fest. You said if you're asleep because I'm here, but I'll take it as that. It's a calming presence.
It's the vibes.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to be here. This is amazing, and I have met you in person before, but then we were online, and so then to be able to be in person again, it's really, really special.
It does.
Meditation can be really helpful, but it's not a skill, tool, or resource to push things away. And when we talk about nervous system regulation, regulation doesn't just mean calm. And regulation means that you can deal with all the shit that comes your way with maybe a little bit more ease.
Consistently.
Consistently.
Like that.
And sometimes we aren't as consistent. Like I was not very well resourced, didn't sleep very well, and seen my parents in New York City. And I could tell I was feeling a lot more irritable. And I was a lot more, what's the word I'm looking for? Up and down, not, a little dysregulated.
Not grounded.
Not grounded.
More towards extremes.
Yeah. And I realized, and remembered that I have to practice what I teach. And so I didn't have to sit and meditate for 20 minutes. I had to basically, you can't see me maybe, but stand on my toes, just do some heel drops and get my body moving again so that I could come back into presence with what was happening. And, so many of the drug companies are focusing on the mental health, like this is a problem, so of course I go to each one of them and I say, this is great. What is your solution? Nothing, right?
You're talking about it.
We're talking about
that's
it.
important.
Right. And what they keep wanting is they want to hear your perspective. What, right? And I'm like, and then what are you going to do to support their perspective? And so I'm trying to bend ears so that we can create resources and education. And so it needs to be a both and. You still may need the medication.
Yes.
But
we know that both is what is most effective.
Exactly.
Like, we know that from
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the concern from drug companies is maybe, I don't know, but if we start talking about how to support the upstream driver of inflammation, which from my perspective is, right, our nervous system is command central, right? And if we bring more regulation into the nervous system, then the signals that it's sending to our immune system aren't as loud, so things may calm down a little bit. So maybe you don't need as much medication. Maybe the side effects are less. So people are still going to be writing their prescriptions for their drugs. They're still going to make their money.
They will never go out of
But
style.
what about the maybe patient outcomes and results are better? And they're happier and they're feeling better because I don't walk a day in your shoes. But the hope is that maybe you can thrive with your condition instead of just feeling like you're just trying to survive.
Yeah, I love that. I think I wish that more derms and doctors in general, to be honest, took a more holistic approach. How Healing Space even started was because Brinley was talking to Dr. Dave Louie about what do you do when you ask a patient if they're okay, and that they need to be asking patients if they're okay. And his response was, and what do I say when they say they're not?
Send them to me.
And then, Brinley was she's like, that's a great fucking question.
Right.
What do I'm a dermatologist. I don't know. So then was born Healing Space.
Yeah.
And with the hopes of consulting to other groups to have them build their own mental health divisions. So I'm really excited to be able to partner with you in helping them, because like my approach is vastly different from yours, which I love so much. You are like calm, and I'm like, fuck that guy, like fuck that fool. Like you,
That's necessary too.
It's a good balance. So I think together we can change the HS.
I agree, and that is my mission too. Like I was sharing, the psycho-dermatology meeting was yesterday, and again, it's mostly psychiatrists. There are a few dermatologists, but the approach is medication management. Again, if you're hemorrhaging, you need acute care. You need to stop the hemorrhage and then immediate suffering, because we know, especially the lived experience, but if you just looked at what they've reported in the literature, patients with HS, increased anxiety, symptoms of PTSD, depression, suicide risk, is real, right? So if you are thinking of harming yourself, you might need acute care.
Absolutely.
And that may require medication. No shame in that.
None.
And then bridging the gap. When you feel resourced enough, how do we keep you from getting back to that feeling, right?
Right.
And so, we were talking about the nervous system earlier, and I really think for me, and this is not something to address what Dr. Dave Nguyen, love him, right? He is amazing, and he has taken it upon himself to learn skills, tools, and resources to share with his patients. And Reiki and laughter yoga is awesome.
Laughing yoga, it's legit.
It's
the coolest thing ever.
You feel so silly doing it, but you can't help but laugh yourself. And when I, just as an aside, I am trying to bring mind-body medicine to our colleagues and bring it to the academy. So it's at the summer meeting, and I've hosted a session. This will be the fourth year that I'm doing it. Dr. Dave Nguyen has been a part of it for the last couple of years, and he did do a laughter yoga experiential, which was hilarious.
I love that.
But to the point of, we aren't taught how to address patients' emotional and mental needs in our conventional derm training. And psychiatry isn't necessarily taught how to address derm issues. And so there isn't a formal psychoderm fellowship at this point. The Europeans have a certificate program, but still it's geared towards medication management, mitigation. So I have spent time with your colleagues in the psychology space for the last 5-7 years, and really trying to learn a different way. Because I've been in therapy for a long time. I'm still in therapy, but I have found that talk therapy wasn't helping me, because I'm an ace at making up stories and interpretations. And
you're an intellectualizer, which means that you're not processing emotions, you're thinking about them.
Exactly. That was my coping strategy. If I can make sense, if I can make a reason why, my mom keeps saying what she's saying or treating me the way that she's treating me.
I can rationalize it.
I can rationalize it. I can make it my fault. But when I was introduced to somatics, right? Soma being the body, somatics being, the living body within, where I didn't have to think anymore. I could just notice how my body was responding to what people were saying, or scrolling on social media. This is a good one. I want everyone to get out their phone right now and open up your Instagram or your social media platform of choice and see what's in your feed. And as you're scrolling, just notice. Does it bring a smile to your face? Do you feel like a lump in your throat or a tightness in your chest? A knot in your stomach? Or do you feel a sense of spaciousness?
Well, my scrolling is a wild time, so we're not going to use me as an example.
But the hope is that my whole point is,
if it doesn't serve you.
If it doesn't serve you, delete it. delete it. Because skincare is about relationship. You know? Our skin is our ultimate barrier between our internal environment, our external environment. And your mind and your skin are intimately related. They are biologically linked. So they are in constant relationship, constant communication. Your skin touches everything. It touches the people, it touches the products. You absorb everything. You also absorb what you are visually taking in. So if you are looking at your feed and it's not bringing you joy, delete it, because those messages, if that tense and tightness is your body's wisdom saying, I'm sounding the alarm bell. That does not make me feel very good. And when it sounds the alarm bell, it's sending signals to your immune system to release inflammatory cytokines that directly and indirectly affect your skin. Many people may not know that your skin has its own stress response system. So we always think about stress as like the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis just in our brain that sends signals to our adrenals that sit above our kidneys to release cortisol. Cortisol is our primary stress hormone, and it can cause all sorts of problems with blood sugar regulation and our hormones and such, other hormones. Our skin has its own HPA axis. Our skin can reduce primary stress hormones like cortisol. So your skin is both a target and a source of your stress response. So it's a double whammy. And stress in and of itself is not a bad thing. It's an adaptation to our environment. Our body is so wise, but we want to offer it cues that don't constantly keep it in a state of acute stress and distress, because cortisol directly impacts your skin, breaks down the skin barrier, makes it more vulnerable to irritation. It directly stimulates your oil glands. More oil, more inflammation, creating the flare-ups and all the things.
It's more stress because you're
Right.
in pain and more
Exactly.
flared,
and then it
the
impedes
cycle.
wound healing, so it becomes a very vicious cycle. So my invitation is, how do we, if you think of your nervous system just as your personal alarm system, when we see things on our social media, for instance, when we are not getting enough sleep, when we're spending time with people who really don't make us feel good, when we're not moving our body in a way that feels supportive, it sounds the alarm bell. We need the alarm bell. We do. We need it, because there are circumstances where you do need to take action. You do need to get out of harm's way. You do need to be in fight or flight, or what we call collapse or shut down, because you have to make yourself a little bit quieter, a little bit smaller, to make sure that you don't get eaten by prey, of whatever variety that is. But in the absence of those true, real threats, how can we turn down the alarm? So meditation, breath work, certain types of movement, journaling, doing art, things that bring you joy, pleasure, can help turn down the volume on that alarm system.
I like that analogy a lot, because we need the alarms. We don't want them to go away, but we also, sometimes they're just malfunctioning and going off like crazy, and you're like, I'm just sitting here. What is happening? So then what can you do in that moment when you know you're safe, you're okay? You know that alarm doesn't need to be that loud. And that takes a lot of interoceptive awareness to be able to even recognize that that's happening. So that's a skill in and of itself. But yeah, I like that analogy of turning it down and using these tools to turn it down, like it's the remote.
Totally. And I think, again, we started off saying, like, we're not using these tools to, like, just mute, right? And we're not using these tools to ignore and suppress and repress the experience that we're having. That interoceptive awareness are a clue that there's something, maybe it's a sound, it's a smell, it's something that is reminding our body of a response, an adaptive response it needed at some point in time. And so how can we use breathwork or meditation or movement to support our experience of that and move it on through so we can complete the stress response cycle and not get stuck?
closure of that event that your body recognized even if you maybe didn't.
Exactly.
That's very interesting that you feel like the body would still need to wrap it up and tie it with a pretty little bow before repeating the cycle again. So you do have to find, what works for you.
Right. And I think you just said something that I had a thought. And then
Don't ask me what I said because I cannot tell you.
But, in terms of what works for you, I always like to think of, the tools and resources that, we went over in the program that we had done together, kind of like a buffet. There's lots available. We're going to teach you a lot, and every week you're going to learn a few, and you try them on. You taste them. You see what, if you don't like it, not a big deal. You don't have to get seconds, but now you've had that experience, you can maybe put it to the side and right tool, right time. It might come in handy at some other point in time.
Absolutely, yeah. I used to talk to my clients about having, and I know it's like a very cliche therapy term, but essentially a toolbox, because these interventions, as they're called in our world, are not one size fit all. Like, there are sometimes personally when I'm, having a panic attack and I do my normal go-to, which is ice, which is just to very quickly,
love it.
But sometimes that doesn't work. So then I have to go to number 2, which is sour candy. And then if that doesn't work, I go to number 3, which is a cold shower. So and those are just my emergency ones and not a good example of kind of what we're talking about.
No, I think those are vital.
Before we dive back into today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank UCB Pharmaceuticals for making the Healing Space podcast possible. At UCB, whole person. They understand that living with hidradenitis suppurativa means more than managing physical health. It's about supporting mental health too. Their commitment to our community, to innovation, advocacy, and compassion is what makes partnerships like this so meaningful. We're so grateful to have UCB standing beside us, helping us create a space where healing is more than a goal. It's a journey we take together. Now, let's get back to the conversation. Dr. Barr, how do people have this balance between not wanting to completely push it away and go away, I'm never going to deal with you again, versus like, I'm not ready to fully embrace it yet. Where, how, when, why?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I feel like you probably have lots of ways to respond to that too as a therapist, and from the somatic experiencing world and that kind of body-based approach, we use a technique, I guess, of what we call titration, right? Can you dip your toe in as much or as little as you feel you have the capacity for? This is about how can we build our resilience and our capacity to handle the big things without overwhelming ourselves and flooding ourselves and going into shutdown, and then we don't want to do it.
Right.
So dipping our toe in and kind of, I love this example of imagining you're using your 2 hands. You've got the shitty feeling in one, and you invite a memory, a thought, an experience of something that really felt supportive or brought joy to you in the other. So you can maybe turn your attention towards the shitty for just a minute. Less than, right? Just enough to like dip into it. Maybe you notice that your gut clenches a little bit, and it just feels too much. So I'm going to shift my attention back to the other hand. Good. And I'm just going to simmer there. I'm going to allow myself to be there as long as I need to until I feel like I can maybe shift back. And you can do that as many times as you need to, right? It's just going back and forth, right? That pendulation from one to the other. So you're not just diving into the deep end without a floaty and a life preserver.
That never works.
No, it doesn't work. And you have to go slowly. And it takes practice. And there are going to be times we're going to think, oh, we can handle it. We just dive right in. And listen, I still do that. This is not a one and done. And what I was, I think, going to say earlier is we were talking about the nervous system, and the alarm system, but an expanded analogy, based in polyvagal theory. I think Dev Data has the ladder. I like to think of our nervous system kind of like an elevator, right? And the elevator knows what floor to stop on based on the cues that it's picking up from our internal environment or our external environment. And so the top floor, and I had one client called the penthouse. I was like, it's the top floor. She's like, no, it's the penthouse. I was like, all right, I like that.
Okay, queen.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so the penthouse is when we do feel that felt sense of safe enough, safety within ourselves, the people around us, and it's a place where we can engage, we can be social, we feel connected, we feel seen, heard, and validated for who we are, and that is when all our systems are kind of functioning as optimally as they can, where healing can happen. But if the nervous system, right, picks up cues of danger, it's going to go to that middle floor, right? That's what our battlefield floor of fight or flight. Sympathetic nervous system is going to come on, stress hormones are going to surge, inflammatory chemicals are going to go, our mind is racing, our heart is racing, we feel tense.
Okay. Dopamine to be found.
Right. And if the threat is ongoing, right, it feels inescapable, no one's coming to help us, we're not able to handle it, the elevator moves to the basement. And this is our shutdown and collapse, where we have to become very small in service of our survival. The challenge for many of us is that we get stuck between the middle floor and the basement. We get stuck there, and our body feels like it doesn't have a way to recover. My go-to, personally, I'm in the basement. I live in the basement because that was the safest place to be, because I couldn't fight. There's no way that I could yell over my mom as well, or my dad, or like whatever. I had to get really small and really quiet. So functional freeze. That is my go-to, where there's a little sympathetic activation. So heart, things, lots of it. It's like maybe I'm dating myself. The Flintstones, where the feet are going, but the car's not going, and you know what I mean. Like that's how I feel all the time. And so I know, like for instance, if just to put it in real context, if you've ever found yourself just scrolling on your phone, you need to stop, but you can't, but you keep scrolling, you can't, and you're like, I know I need to stop, but I can't stop. That is kind of like that functional freeze. You're like, you're taking action, but you can't take the action that you really know would be very supportive for you. This is where the somatics can really be helpful, because in that moment, I realize I need some motion. I'm stuck in shutdown or collapse, so what do I need to do? The smallest motion to get my body back into a rhythm, and if I can rock back and forth, or heel toe, move a little bit, I can get some momentum, and then my elevator starts moving again. I have to move, and you don't go from the basement to the penthouse. You have to go through that middle floor again. That's why our sympathetic nervous system, our fight or flight response, is not something to be feared or to be, avoided. We need that mobilization. We need, for those of us who get stuck in the basement, we have to go through that middle floor in order to get back to the penthouse. And the invitation is that we don't want to live in the penthouse. That is not the point of this. The point is, how can we get that elevator moving with some flexibility and ease so that we can deal with whatever life challenges throws us appropriately. And the thing that gets the elevator moving again is the vagus nerve. Right? So all of these things that we're talking about, the breath work, the meditation, the movement, those and self-touch and other techniques and practices that we can talk about, but all of that is increasing vagal tone. And we know that increasing vagal tone is what helps our nervous system kind of come back into its regulated state, turning down the volume, but still have it be efficient and effective to respond in the way that it needs to.
That was beautiful.
That was so well put, and I love the visual to go along with it.
I love visual.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
That was really, I think, insightful to break it down into layman's terms of what is actually happening in our bodies, because when we're experiencing it, it's just like everything is terrible and I'm gonna die. But if you can stop even just for a second and say, like, this isn't my response. This is my vagal response. And kind of, I'm a big fan of differentiating or externalizing, and even doing that with your response and your response system can be really helpful. So I believe that was a perfect episode, and no more is needed. That is enough for them to walk away with and be like I'm mind blown, and I know you're mind blown. So we're gonna give you a little resty rest. Thank you so much for your time, for coming here, for the hassle of getting here,
Through the traffic.
and being
I'm so glad. I'm
so flexible. We really appreciate it. And if you don't follow Dr. Barr on all the things, follow Dr. Barr on all the things, because she posts amazing content. We have classes with HS Connect that we're trying to get another program up and running to do the skincare thing again, because it was such a success
So wonderful.
the first time. So thank you, Dr. Barr.
Thank you.
And I think y'all probably have another episode to go watch. So what are you still doing here? Get out. Go.